Right now, there are gemstones being sold online that look so convincing. Even experts can't spot the lie from a photo. And that's the trap. Because the most dangerous scams today aren't cheap plastic fakes. They're real stones with real sparkle paired with the wrong story. One of the gems on this list is marketed with a single word that can double the price overnight, even though most buyers have no way to verify it. Another is famous for a glow so unreal, scammers don't even fake the stone anymore. They fake the lighting. And the number one stone on this countdown? It's the one people trust the most and misunderstand the worst. The internet doesn't just sell gemstones anymore. It sells certainty. And certainty is the easiest thing to counterfeit. So in this documentary, these are the 10 gemstones most commonly faked, swapped, treated, or misrepresented online. And the fastest checks that expose the warning signs in seconds. Quick question before we start. What's the one gemstone you trust the least when buying online? Drop it in the comments, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. Ranked 10th, Mahenge Spinel, the neon pink gem that looks too fake to be real. Mahenge Spinel is not the kind of gemstone that looks beautiful in a safe way. It's the kind of stone that makes people stop scrolling, because the color looks almost impossible. In the Mahenge region of Tanzania, a rare type of spinel appears in a neon pink so intense that many first-time buyers assume it must be synthetic. And that reaction is exactly why Mahenge Spinel has become one of the most misunderstood and most aggressively misrepresented colored stones on the modern market. Spinel itself has a long, almost ironic history. For centuries, it was confused with ruby in royal collections. Famous rubies in crowns and museums later turned out to be spinels. But Mahenge Spinel doesn't rely on ancient prestige. It relies on something even stronger. Visual shock. This is not a soft pastel pink, not the purple-leaning pink of Sapphire. Mahenge can look like electric pink, hot ember pink, even a saturated pinkish red that seems to glow under strong light. In the right cut, it doesn't just sparkle, it appears to light up from the inside. And here's what makes it even more interesting. Many Mahenge Spinels are naturally beautiful without heat treatment. In a world where most colored stones are routinely treated to improve color, that detail matters. It's one of the reasons collectors and serious buyers pay attention when the words Mahenge and Spinel appear together. But the same thing that makes Mahenge Spinel famous also makes it a perfect target. Because the color looks unreal, it's easy for dishonest sellers to exploit. Some sellers label any bright pink spinel as Mahenge color, even if it comes from a completely different location. Others use heavily edited photos to exaggerate saturation. And the most damaging trick of all is simple: selling the idea of Mahenge Spinel through pictures alone. Mahenge is one of those stones that photography can lie about. Some stones look neon online and dull in person. Others look ordinary in photos, but explode with life in real light. That is why a real evaluation of Mahenge Spinel isn't just about pink. It's about whether the stone holds its intensity under different lighting, whether the crystal is clean enough for light to travel freely, and whether the gem has what professionals call presence, the feeling that the stone is alive, not flat. A truly fine Mahenge Spinel doesn't need dramatic marketing. Put it next to most other pink gemstones, and everything else suddenly looks like the brightness was turned down. If a neon pink gemstone has ever made you think, "There's no way that's real," type neon in the comments, because that reaction is exactly what Mahenge Spinel was born to cause. And that is precisely why it belongs in any serious list of the most fake gemstones online. Mahenge Spinel isn't just faked because it's valuable. It's fake because it's hard to believe. It is a gemstone that punishes assumptions and rewards people who understand what real color looks like when nature decides to break the rules. Ranked 9th, Savorite Garnet, the green gem scammers swap for emerald. Savorite Garnet is one of the most dangerous gemstones in the market, not because it's toxic or cursed or controversial, but because it looks too normal. To most people, Savorite is simply a green stone. And that single misunderstanding is exactly why it gets faked, swapped, and missold more quietly than almost anything else on this list. Savorite is not emerald. It doesn't have emerald's famous history. It doesn't have emerald's name recognition. And it doesn't have emerald's built-in protection because buyers already expect emerald to be treated, included, and sometimes questionable. Savorite is different. A fine to Savorite is one of the rarest green gems on Earth that can appear clean, vivid, and naturally saturated, without the heavy fracture filling that emerald often relies on. It belongs to the Garnet family, but in the best material, that fact almost feels irrelevant. The stone doesn't look like a garnet, it looks like a piece of concentrated green light. And unlike emerald, Savorite's green is often sharper, more electric, more precise. In certain sizes, it can look almost like a high-end green laser trapped inside a crystal. But here is where the story turns. Because Savorite is expensive, and because it can resemble other green stones at a glance, it becomes an easy target for substitution. Many buyers don't know what they're supposed to be looking at. They only know one thing: green equals emerald. So the market does what markets always do. It exploits the shortcut. Some sellers label lower-grade green garnet as Savorite. Some push green glass as natural garnet. Some sell chrome diopside, cheap, pretty, and widely available, as Savorite in online listings where no one can verify anything. And one of the most common traps is even simpler: selling a stone that looks green in one light, but turns dull in another. Because Savorite is not just about being green, it's about how the green holds. A true high-quality Savorite doesn't collapse in indoor lighting. It doesn't lose its life in shade. It stays bright, even when the environment tries to steal its color. That is one of the quickest professional checks. Another check is the way Savorite handles brilliance. Emerald tends to show a softer, more watery glow. Savorite, in a well-cut stone, often flashes with a cleaner, sharper sparkle, not because it's more brilliant than emerald in theory, but because Savorite is often cleaner, and light has fewer internal obstacles to fight through. If you've ever seen a Savorite listing online and thought, "That just looks like emerald," comment "green trap," because that confusion is exactly what scammers count on. And that's why Savorite belongs on this list. It's not the most famous stone, it's not the most talked about, but it is one of the most quietly manipulated gemstones in online marketplaces because it hides behind the public's lack of reference. Savorite garnet is the kind of gem that rewards educated eyes and punishes anyone who thinks green is just green. Ranked 8th, Red Beryl, the rare gem the internet lies about most. Red Beryl, also known by its collector nickname Bixbite, is one of the rarest gemstones on Earth that almost nobody has actually seen in real life. And that single fact creates a perfect storm. Because when a gemstone is this rare, most buyers don't have a reference point. They don't know what the color should look like, how the glow should behave, or what the price should be. And whenever the market lacks reference, the internet fills the gap. Red Beryl is not a red emerald. That's the lazy description people use because it sounds simple. But Red Beryl is its own phenomenon, formed under extremely specific geological conditions that almost never happen. The result is a gemstone that can appear as a rich raspberry red, a deep cherry red, sometimes even with a slightly purplish undertone that makes it look more modern than ruby. And unlike ruby, which exists in many countries, in many qualities, and in many sizes, Red Beryl doesn't give the world that luxury. Fine Red Beryl is famously small. Even stones under 1 carat can be museum-level rare. That is why it becomes one of the most aggressively faked, rare gems online. Because for scammers, Red Beryl is the perfect target. The name sounds exotic, the real stones are almost never seen, and most people don't realize that a 3-carat Red Beryl listing is already suspicious before the price is even mentioned. The most common deception is simple: using synthetic material or red glass and attaching the word Bixbite like a luxury label. Another is selling Red Beryl rough that is actually dyed quartz, dyed beryl, or low-grade material misidentified on purpose. And then there's the most convincing trap of all, selling red stones that are real, but not Red Beryl. Red Spinel, red garnet, even treated sapphire, all real stones, all beautiful, but not the thing being promised. A genuine Red Beryl has a very specific look when it's cut well. It tends to show a crisp internal brightness, almost like the stone is cleanly lit from within, rather than the heavy, sleepy darkness that many cheap red stones fall into. The color doesn't just sit on the surface. It feels structural, as if the red is built into the crystal, not painted over it. And the scarcity is not a marketing story, it's measurable. When red beryl is offered in large sizes, it almost always signals one of two things. Either the listing is dishonest or the stone is something else entirely. If you have ever seen a listing claiming a 2-carat red beryl online, comment impossible, because that one word describes how most of those listings should be treated. Red beryl is a gemstone that doesn't just test buyers, it tests the internet itself, because it is rare enough that the truth becomes inconvenient. And when truth is inconvenient, the market manufactures a replacement. That is why red beryl belongs on this list. Not because it's the most common gemstone to fake, but because it is one of the easiest rare gemstones to lie about. Ranked 7th, Welo Opal, the beautiful stone that can change after you buy it. Welo Opal, often called Ethiopian opal, is one of the most seductive gemstones ever sold online. Not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because it performs. A good Welo opal doesn't just sparkle, it throws color like a living thing. Red fire, green flashes, electric blue, sometimes all in the same second. In photos and videos, it looks almost unreal, like someone edited rainbow light into the stone. And that is exactly why Welo Opal became one of the fastest growing opal markets in the world. But the story that makes Welo Opal famous is also the story that makes it one of the most dangerous gemstones to buy online. Because Welo Opal is not like the classic Australian opal most people imagine. Many Ethiopian opals are hydrophane, meaning the stone can absorb water, and when a gemstone can absorb water, it can also absorb oils, chemicals, and even temporary treatments that change the way it looks. That single property creates a marketplace problem no thumbnail can solve. Some Welo opals look breathtaking in a listing, and then change weeks later. Some arrive looking perfect, and dull down after exposure to lotions, humidity, or even normal skin contact. And some are treated in ways that make the fire look stronger at the moment of sale, only for the buyer to discover the truth after the return window closes. This is not a curse, it's geology. Welo opal's internal structure can behave like a sponge at the microscopic level. When it fills with moisture, the stone can become more transparent. When it dries, it can turn cloudy. In some cases, it can even develop visible changes that were not obvious at the time of purchase. And here is the most important point. A Welo opal can be completely natural and still behave unpredictably. That's what makes it such a perfect scam target, because even honest sellers sometimes don't fully understand what they're selling. Now add one more layer: imitation. Opal is one of the most copied gemstone looks in history, and online, imitation opal can be dangerously convincing. Synthetic opal can display perfect, repeating patterns, sometimes too perfect. Some fakes even look better than real opal in photos because the fire is uniform and controlled. But real Welo opal is not uniform, it is chaotic. The fire appears in patches, flashes, and irregular zones, like weather inside a crystal. A true high-quality Welo opal has something professionals look for immediately: movement. The color isn't pasted on the surface. It shifts with angle, with distance, with light source. It behaves like depth, not like a sticker. If you've ever seen an opal online and thought, "That looks too perfect to be real," comment "too perfect," because that instinct is often the correct one. Welo opal belongs on this list because it sits at the intersection of three things scammers love. It photographs insanely well, it can change after purchase, and buyers don't know what normal looks like. It is one of the most beautiful gemstones in the world, and one of the easiest gemstones to misrepresent through a screen. Ranked 6th, Tanzanite, the perfect blue trap that fools online buyers. Tanzanite is one of the most emotionally effective gemstones ever marketed, not because it's the rarest stone on earth, but because it looks like a miracle that can be worn. A fine Tanzanite can show blue, violet, and flashes of purple in the same stone, sometimes shifting depending on the angle and lighting. In the right cut, it looks like the sky at dusk trapped inside a crystal. And for decades, that look has been sold as something almost mythic, a gemstone found in only one place on Earth. That part is true. Tanzanite comes from a small mining area near Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. The deposit is famously limited, and that single-source story has become part of its identity. It's the kind of gemstone that feels like it should be protected by geography alone. But online, geography doesn't protect anything. Tanzanite belongs on this list because it sits at the center of three powerful forces: high demand, strong visual appeal, and widespread buyer confusion. Most people don't know what they're actually supposed to be buying. They know they want blue. They know they want deep color, and they know they want something that looks expensive. Scammers understand that perfectly. One of the most common deceptions is substitution. Stones like iolite, much cheaper, widely available and naturally blue, can be sold as Tanzanite in low-quality listings. Some blue glass and lab materials are also marketed using the word Tanzanite loosely, especially in marketplaces where gem terminology is poorly regulated. But the deeper issue is even more subtle. Tanzanite is one of the most routinely heat-treated gemstones on the market. And unlike many treatments, heating Tanzanite is often considered standard practice. It brings out the blue-violet tones by reducing brownish or yellowish components that may appear in the rough. That is not automatically bad. However, it creates a perfect hiding place for dishonesty, because buyers assume the stone should look intensely blue. When they see that saturated color online, they don't ask questions. They assume it's normal. And that's where fake listings thrive. They imitate the look buyers expect, not the stone itself. A real Tanzanite has a signature behavior professionals watch for immediately: pleochroism. That means the stone can show different colors depending on the viewing angle, often blue in one direction and violet in another. In a properly cut stone, this effect can look mesmerizing. In a fake stone, the color often looks flat, consistent, and lifeless. Real Tanzanite also tends to show a particular type of brilliance. It can be bright, but not in the hard sparkle way of sapphire. It has a softer, more atmospheric glow, almost like light is diffusing through the gem rather than bouncing off it. If you've ever seen a Tanzanite listing online that looked too perfectly blue, comment "perfect blue," because that's one of the biggest traps in the entire Tanzanite market. Tanzanite is one of the most beautiful gemstones a person can buy, but it's also one of the easiest gemstones to misrepresent, because most buyers are shopping for a color, not a mineral. And when people shop for color, the internet sells them an illusion. Ranked 5th, Paraiba Tourmaline, the neon gem the internet loves to misname. Paraiba Tourmaline is not just a gemstone. It is a visual event. When a real Paraiba appears under light, it doesn't look like a normal blue or green stone. It looks like something glowing, almost electrically, like neon trapped inside crystal. The color can lean turquoise, green-blue, or a bright ocean blue that feels more like light than pigment. And that is exactly why Paraiba has become one of the most targeted gemstones in the online market. Because when a gemstone becomes famous for one thing, one unforgettable effect, scammers don't need to copy the stone. They only need to copy the feeling. Paraiba is one of the clearest examples of this rule. When people shop for a glow, the internet sells them a glow. The real story begins in Brazil in the late 1980s, when copper-bearing tourmaline was discovered in Paraiba state. The copper content created something the market had never seen at that intensity: a neon, almost luminous saturation that looked modern, even futuristic. Paraiba wasn't simply rare, it was new. And once the market learns a new kind of beauty, it becomes addicted. But the moment Paraiba became a symbol, it also became a label. And labels are easy to abuse. One of the most common deceptions is misnaming. Many sellers call any bright blue tourmaline Paraiba, even if it contains no copper and comes from a completely different region. Some listings use phrases like Paraiba color or Paraiba type to create the association without making a direct claim. Another trap is even more powerful: lighting manipulation. Paraiba is one of the most lighting-dependent gemstones in the world. Under the right light, even a mediocre stone can look electric. Under neutral daylight, that same stone may look darker, grayer, or less alive. Online sellers know this. And the best scammers don't fake the gem, they fake the conditions. And then there's the highest level deception: laboratory-created lookalikes. There are synthetic materials and treated stones that can imitate Paraiba's neon look well enough to fool casual buyers in photos. Even natural stones like apatite or certain treated quartz can be presented as Paraiba tourmaline to buyers who don't know what tourmaline should look like under multiple light sources. But a true Paraiba has a specific kind of behavior that professionals recognize immediately. The glow is not surface level. It appears to come from within, as if the stone has internal light rather than external sparkle. The best Paraibas don't just flash, they radiate. And here is the part most buyers miss. Paraiba isn't just expensive because it's rare. It's expensive because the look is addictive. That is why the market keeps trying to manufacture it. If you've ever seen a Paraiba listing online for a price that felt suspiciously low, comment any on lie, because Paraiba is one of the stones where the price itself is often the first warning sign. Paraiba tourmaline belongs on this list because it represents the most modern gemstone scam of all. Not replacing the stone, but replacing the sensation. And when the gemstone is famous for looking like light, the internet will always try to sell you light, whether it's real or not. Ranked fourth, Alexandrite, the color change. Magic, the internet can fake with light. Alexandrite, and color change gemstones in general, are the most tempting category on this entire list, because they don't just look beautiful, they look like magic. A real color change stone can shift from greenish tones in daylight to red or purplish red under warm indoor light. Not slightly, not subtly. In the best examples, the change feels like a transformation, like the gemstone is two different stones depending on where it is. And when a gemstone is famous for behaving like a trick, it becomes the perfect object for the internet to imitate. Color change stones belong on this list because they are one of the easiest gemstone experiences to fake on camera. A seller doesn't even need to fake the gem itself, they only need to control the lighting, with the right bulb, the right color temperature, and the right camera settings. Almost any stone can be made to appear as if it is changing. Videos can be edited, color can be boosted, the saturation can be exaggerated. And because the buyer wants to believe it, the illusion sells itself. That is the psychology of this market. People don't shop for a gemstone, they shop for a moment. Now, Alexandrite is the most famous name in this category. Historically, it was discovered in Russia and became legendary because it appeared green in daylight and red under candlelight. But in modern markets, the word Alexandrite is often used in ways that are extremely loose. Many stones sold online as Alexandrite are not natural Alexandrite at all. Some are synthetic Alexandrite, which can still look beautiful, but is often sold as natural. Some are other color change stones entirely, such as color change sapphire, garnet, or spinel. And some are inexpensive lab-created materials that mimic the shift very convincingly in controlled conditions. The problem is not that synthetic stones exist. The problem is how often the label is used to create false value. Because Alexandrite is one of those gemstone names that instantly multiplies the price. And that creates an ecosystem where mislabeling becomes the business model. A real fine Alexandrite is extraordinarily rare. The best natural stones show a strong, balanced change, green to red, with good clarity and brilliance. But those stones do not show up in random online marketplaces for deal prices. They show up in serious gem networks, high-end auctions, and certified collections. That is why color change stones are so dangerous online. The buyer is not just buying color. They are buying the idea of rarity. And rarity is the easiest thing to counterfeit with words. There is also a second deception most buyers don't know about. Not all color change is equal. Some stones show a weak shift. Some show a muddy shift. Some only shift under very specific bulbs. Sellers can present the strongest possible lighting scenario to make a weak stone look legendary. A professional evaluation always asks one question. Does the change hold under normal, real-world light, or only under a staged setup? If you've ever watched a color change gemstone video online and thought, that has to be edited, comment light trick. Because in this category, lighting is often the real product being sold. Alexandrite and color change stones belong on this list because they represent the most modern kind of gemstone deception. Not faking the mineral, faking the experience. And when the gemstone is famous for changing color, the internet will always try to sell you the change, whether the stone deserves it or not. Ranked third, unheated sapphire, the one word that turns a listing into a lie. Blue sapphire is one of the most trusted gemstones in the world. It has the reputation of permanence, the reputation of royalty, the reputation of real value. And that is exactly why sapphire has become one of the most dangerous gemstones to buy online, especially when one word is added to the listing, unheated. Because unheated doesn't just describe a sapphire, it changes the price, the status, and the story. In the modern gem market, sapphire is one of the most commonly heat-treated stones. Heat treatment can improve clarity and color, and in many cases it is considered accepted and routine. But when a sapphire is truly unheated, meaning it has not been enhanced by heat, the market treats it as rarer, more natural, and more collectible. That is the logic, and scammers understand it perfectly. The word unheated has become one of the most abused keywords in online gemstone sales. Not because it's easy to prove, but because it's hard for the average buyer to challenge. Most people don't have lab access. Most people don't know what heat treatment looks like internally. And most people don't realize that even honest sellers can be wrong unless the stone has a reliable lab report. So the internet does what it always does. It turns authority into a marketing button. A sapphire listing can look completely legitimate. The photos can be stunning. The color can appear deep and velvety. The description can sound professional. And then quietly, the word unheated is placed in the title like a seal of truth. But the truth is, the only way to confirm unheated status is through proper gemological testing. That is why this gemstone belongs near the top of this list. Because in sapphire, the scam is often not the stone. The scam is the claim. There is another layer that makes sapphire especially vulnerable online. Sapphire has one of the widest quality ranges of any gemstone. A sapphire can be worth a few dollars or hundreds of thousands. The difference comes down to origin, saturation, tone, clarity, cut, and whether the stone has been treated. And online, those differences collapse. Photos compress everything. Lighting hides problems. Saturation can be boosted. Inclusions can be blurred. A stone that looks royal blue on a screen may look dark, inky, or gray in real life. And sapphire has a specific weakness. Many low-grade sapphires look impressive under intense light, but lose their beauty in normal indoor conditions. The stone may appear blackish, or lifeless, or overly dark. A truly fine sapphire doesn't rely on the spotlight. It holds its color in everyday life. If you've ever seen an unheated sapphire listing online and thought, how would anyone even prove that? Comment prove it, because that question is the smartest one a buyer can ask. Blue sapphire is on this list because it represents a sophisticated kind of deception. Not the fake stone, the fake authority. And when one word can multiply the price, the internet will always try to sell you that word, whether the sapphire deserves it or not. Ranked second, Mogok ruby, the pigeon blood lie that prints money online. Ruby is the gemstone the world already believes in. It doesn't need to be explained, it doesn't need to be introduced, and it doesn't need a trend cycle to stay valuable. Ruby is one of the few stones where the public's imagination is already doing half the marketing. And that is exactly why ruby has one of the most advanced fake ecosystems in the entire gemstone market, especially when two words appear in the listing. Mogok, pigeon blood. Those words are not just descriptions, they are price multipliers. Mogok is a region in Myanmar historically associated with some of the finest rubies ever discovered. And pigeon blood is a trade term meant to describe an intensely saturated red with a specific balance, vivid, pure, and alive, without turning too dark. In theory, those terms help buyers understand quality. In practice online, they have become marketing weapons, because ruby has a problem that many gemstones don't. A ruby can be real and still be misleading. Ruby is one of the most treated stones on Earth. Some treatments are minor and widely accepted. Others are extreme, and in the online market, the most dangerous rubies are not the obviously fake ones. They are the rubies that are technically real, but engineered to look like something they are not. One of the most infamous examples is glass-filled ruby. This is ruby material that has been heavily fractured, then filled with glass to improve clarity and make it appear more transparent. On camera, the stone can look clean and bright. In real life, it may be fragile, unstable, and far less valuable than the listing implies. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Many buyers don't know this exists. They see red, they see sparkle, they see Mogok in the title, and the purchase feels safe. But Mogok is one of the easiest words to misuse online because most buyers have no way to verify origin. Determining origin is not something a casual seller can confirm by experience. It requires serious gemological testing, and even then, origin conclusions depend on labs, evidence, and confidence levels. That's why Mogok is such a powerful scam tool. It sounds like provenance, but it's often just branding. And pigeon blood is even worse, because pigeon blood is not a legal definition. It is a visual term, and sellers use it to describe everything from deep crimson to overly dark red to stones with brownish undertones. Anything that looks dramatic under bright lighting. A ruby can be photographed under intense, warm light and appear like a perfect glowing red. But under neutral daylight, it may look darker, duller, or slightly brownish. Online listings are rarely built for truth. They're built for conversion. A truly fine ruby does not rely on warm lighting to look alive. It holds its red under normal conditions. And a truly high-end Mogok ruby is not sold casually. It is sold with serious documentation, serious pricing, and serious scrutiny. If you've ever seen a Mogok pigeon blood ruby online for a price that felt too reasonable, comment red flag, because in ruby, the deal itself is often the warning. Ruby belongs on this list because it represents the highest level of gemstone deception, not the cheap fake, the expensive lie. And when the world already believes ruby is the ultimate red, the internet will always try to sell you the ultimate story, whether the stone can prove it or not. In first place, emerald, the most faked gemstone online. Emerald is the gemstone that breaks people's trust, not because it's ugly, not because it's overrated, but because emerald is the stone where the difference between real and honest becomes painfully complicated. Emerald is, without question, one of the most famous gemstones on Earth. It carries a mythology that no marketing team could ever recreate. Cleopatra, dynasties, royal collections, hidden mines, forbidden trade routes. Even people who don't care about gemstones recognize emerald as a symbol of wealth. And that recognition is exactly why emerald sits at number 1 on this list. Because emerald is not just faked more than most stones, it is confused more than most stones. The emerald market is built on a paradox. The world expects emerald to be flawless, because that is how diamonds are judged. But real emerald is almost never flawless. Emerald is a type of beryl, and it forms under conditions that often create internal fractures and inclusions. Those inclusions are so common, they have their own poetic name, jardin, French for garden. In high-end emeralds, that internal garden is not automatically a defect. It is part of the identity. But online, identity doesn't sell. Perfection sells. And that is where emerald becomes the most profitable gemstone to misrepresent. The first trap is the oldest, imitation. Emerald green glass has been sold for centuries. Synthetic emerald exists. Green stones like peridot, tourmaline, and even dyed quartz are routinely sold under emerald-like descriptions. Many of these are not even technically fake in the criminal sense. They are simply sold in listings that rely on the buyer not asking the right question. The second trap is more modern. Composites and lab-created lookalikes that can appear too clean, too bright, too perfect. But the real reason emerald wins this list is the third trap, the one most buyers never see coming: treatment disguised as nature. Emerald is one of the most commonly treated gemstones in the world. Many emeralds are oiled to reduce the visibility of fractures. This is widely practiced and, in certain forms, accepted in the trade. But there is a line between accepted enhancement and serious deception. Some stones are treated with resins or polymers. Some are heavily filled. Some are stabilized. Some are presented as minor oil, when the reality is far more significant. And to a buyer looking at a beautiful green stone on a screen, those words sound like harmless details. They are not harmless. Because in emerald, treatment can be the difference between a stone that holds value and a stone that collapses under scrutiny. And emerald has one more weakness: lighting. Emerald is one of the most flattering gemstones under warm, controlled lighting. Under jewelry store lights, almost any green stone can look richer. Under phone camera exposure, saturation can be pushed. Under video, the stone can be rotated to catch its best moments. Online, emerald is not sold as a mineral. It is sold as a performance. A truly fine emerald has a specific kind of depth. The green does not look painted on. It looks like it comes from inside the crystal, with a soft, almost velvety glow. The best emeralds do not look neon. They look rich. They look expensive even when they are not screaming for attention. And here is the hardest truth in the emerald market. The most convincing emerald scams are not the ones that sell fake emerald. They are the ones that sell real emerald with a fake story. Origin claims, treatment claims, quality claims. Emerald is where language becomes the product. If you've ever seen an emerald listing online that looked unbelievably clean, comment "too clean," because in emerald, too clean is often the first sign something is being hidden. Emerald sits at number 1 because it is the gemstone where the buyer is forced to learn a painful lesson. A gemstone can be real, and the listing can still be a lie. Emerald is not the easiest gemstone to fake. It is the easiest gemstone to sell dishonestly, and that is why it defeats more buyers than any other stone on the internet. If this video proved anything, it's this. Most people don't get fooled because they're careless. They get fooled because the listing was designed to feel trustworthy. A clean photo, a confident description, and a few expensive-sounding words. But now you know what to watch for. So the goal isn't paranoia, it's proof. Which gemstone surprised you the most on this list, and which one do you think should have been number 1? Drop it below. I read every comment. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.